Tip number 3 is... I forgot. What's tip number 3?
Shut the fuck up, I have no fucking idea.
I guess that's the end of the video then. See you guys later. Yo, what is going on guys? Welcome to the vlog. We're doing something a little bit different today. I'm in the city right now shooting with my friend Anish, but instead of documenting the shoot, I just wanted to give you guys 5 quick tips on beginner photography. So the first tip that I have for you guys is always shoot in manual. So when you're shooting in manual, the 3 things you want to look at is your shutter speed, your aperture and your ISO. So your shutter speed is how long you have the shutter open for. So it really depends on subject that you're shooting. If you're shooting fast moving objects, or if you're shooting sports, or say a bird that's flying past, you want to have a high shutter speed so you can freeze that moment. Whereas if you're shooting long exposures, or you want a bit more motion blur from light trails in your image, then you would have a lower shutter speed. Adjust your shutter speed first and then adjust your aperture, or at least that's what I do. Your aperture is how much light you're letting into the image. If you want a shallow depth of field or that nice blurry background, then you would have a higher aperture. Whereas if you're shooting landscape and you want everything a bit more in focus, then you would have a lower aperture. So it really depends on what you're shooting. And then you have your ISO. So ISO is pretty much, I'd say, it's kind of like fake light. You want to adjust that last, depending on how dull or bright your image is. Just remember, the higher your ISO goes, the more noise you'll have in your image and the less quality you'll have in your image. But most of the time I like to keep my ISO as low as possible. Obviously at night time you're going to have to bump your ISO, but always remember to shoot on manual. If you are shooting on iPhone, there's a lot of apps that you can download that let you adjust your aperture, ISO and shutter speed. I'll link some of those apps that I use down below. But yeah, tip number 1 is to always shoot in manual. Tip number 2 is to always shoot in RAW and not JPEG. When you shoot in JPEG, you're compressing the file. A lot of the data that's coming out of the camera is already compressed, such as the contrast, the shadows, the highlights. So when you bring it into post and you're trying to edit the photo, you're not going to have as much room to play around with. Whereas when you shoot in RAW, it's an uncompressed file, so there's a lot more room to play around when you're editing the photo, and you can bring back a lot of the detail, such as the highlights and the shadows. So highly recommend shooting in RAW and not JPEG. Again, your camera should have an option to shoot RAW, and if you're shooting on an iPhone, a lot of the apps will let you shoot in RAW. Alright, so tip number 3 is always remember to frame your shots. So think about the composition of the shot and how you want to frame it. Look for leading lines, look for symmetry. I guess it depends what you're shooting, but if you just take a moment to think about how you frame your shot, it'll help so much when you take it into post. It will really help you if you kind of already decide what your focal point is going to be in the image when you are taking it. So it's just something to keep in mind. Tip number 4 is to always edit your photos. If you don't usually edit your photos, get into the habit of it. I use Lightroom to edit my photos. You can watch my last video where I did a quick tutorial on how I edit my photos. Definitely learn to edit your photos, because it's crazy what editing can do to an image. You can really enhance your image and make it look so much better. And my last tip is, don't overthink it. Just go out and take photos, have fun editing your photos, enjoy the process of creating, and over time you will get better. Like with anything in life, it's impossible not to get better if you do something every single day. So you have no excuses but to just go and take photos. And if you guys have mates who are into photography or videography, I would highly recommend shooting with them and bouncing ideas off each other, because I find that it really helps me. It's a really easy way to learn. So Shooting by yourself can also be good at times, but when you can, I do recommend shooting with other people because you're always going to learn something new. If you guys enjoyed this video, maybe consider liking and subscribing. I hope I taught you something new in this video, but with that all said and done, I will see you in the next one.